Howdy, folks. Thanks for tuning in for another Cruise with Smooth. I'm sorry I hadn't spoke on anything lately. Just realistically, okay, I enjoy kind of talking about the news and what's going on, but a lot of the news until the other day was kind of the same. And I wasn't able to, and then once some new stuff happened, I had to research a little, and form an opinion, things like that. So, because for about a week it was coronavirus and aftermath of George Floyd. So, I want to talk about something today that is heartbreaking. I'm not going to get any names right. But I believe in North Carolina, there was a 5-year-old boy that got murdered while riding his bicycle in his front yard by his neighbor. As far as I'm aware, the neighbor's currently in the wind, evading law enforcement. Witnesses state that it was basically a mob hit as far as execution style, gun straight to the head, point blank. From what I understand about it, the family and the neighbor in question were friends. Like, the neighbor had been over to dinner. So, the thing about it that really irks me, and I'm gonna do my best not to ruffle any feathers, but speak strictly in matters of fact. And if that ruffles your feathers, at that point, I'm sorry. But I'm not gonna lie to keep everybody happy. Michael Brown, Ferguson burned because of him, and over a patently false narrative, hands up, don't shoot, never happened, according to black eyewitnesses that saw everything go down. The Ferguson justice system acquitted, I can't remember that cop's name, or found not guilty, take your pick, I don't really know. The Obama DOJ couldn't find anything worth prosecution. And there's a new black district attorney that was recently elected, and he reopened the case and couldn't find anything worthy of prosecution. All the evidence pointed to the officer acting in self-defense or his best interest, the best interest of those around him, since Michael Brown did manage to get a gun away from the cop once. So, there is that. And Ferguson I'm 800 miles away from Ferguson, and it was all over the news for a while. The only way I'm hearing about this boy in North Carolina in that case is through sources not ABC, CNN, MSNBC, like that. So there's decidedly bias in the media. And I think anyone that would dare say otherwise is blissfully ignorant to the facts or just out and out lying. And the reason that I said all that, a few weeks back I got into I don't know if I can call it heated, because it was over text message, but and so, like, I'm not willing to read tone of voice into these text messages, but a friend of mine, I've known him for 7-8 years now, I guess. He and I got talking, and he's like, boy, I'd be doing a lot better in November of this year. I'm like, wow, what's wrong? I'm tired of hearing Trump's name. I'm like, okay, I kind of get that. He's, whether he's doing something that's newsworthy or not, he's in the news. He's like, not just that. And after quite a bit of discussion, basically he said that if he had the ability to, he would give Trump the Thanos treatment, or the bloodline the Thanos treatment. And I'm just like, wow, that's a little dark. But basically you've got someone that is buying into an entire narrative by biased media, and anyone that wants you to be informed that is worth their salt will tell you, listen to multiple sources. It is a crazy example. Okay, I can support Trump policy very easily. It's more difficult for me to support Trump the man. And if you tune into Fox News or other alternative conservative media sources, a lot of them will kiss up to Trump no matter what. And that's really irritating, because if Trump does something bad, I kind of want him called on it. When Trump does something good, there's a lot of news sources that won't give him credit where it's due. For example, the payroll tax cut through the end of this year to try to get the economy back on its feet and pick up a little momentum. I've been hearing a lot of spin on how that's not helping anybody. I've been hearing factually dishonest information on it, that sure, you get to keep the money, but when the payroll taxes go back into effect, you owe the back pay of all that. And no. So there's decidedly a lot of disinformation out there from both sides, and it's exhausting to try to sort through it, or a lot of tail kissing from both sides. Like, okay, Joe Biden in and of himself isn't a particularly threatening candidate. He just kind of wants to maybe raise taxes a little, or maybe this or that, but he's not, radically one thing or another. He's just kind of Uncle Joe. But you've got to take things into consideration that you simply cannot discuss in the current media climate. I was listening to a poll, I believe it was Gallup. 49% of registered Democrats do not believe that Joe Biden will be able to finish out his first term as president. The number crosses the 50% margin when you start looking at independents and Republican voters. And that's something that no one's willing to discuss. Like, okay, if I had zero problems with Joe Biden, which I've got a handful, no need to air all that out right now, but I've got a handful of problems with him as far as, disagreements that I have. If I was considering voting for Joe Biden as a Democrat, there's a 49% chance that even going into the voting booth, I'm thinking, what does President Kamala Harris look like? That's a real thing, but you can't talk about that. And no one is talking about that. Unless you tune into Fox News. And then when they talk about Biden, that's like a hound dog on a ham bone. That's, they're all over it and they won't give it a rest. In my opinion, there are things about both presidential candidates, President Trump and former Vice President Biden, that are good points and bad points to go for their, to be motivation to vote for them or to not vote for them. The determining factor is whether or not you agree with more of the Biden perspective or more of the Trump perspective. There was a friend of mine back in 2015 who, and I find this to be really odd. This is weird. She was pro-choice, and now she's not, which I'm glad. But she was gonna vote for Trump because she's like, okay, Roe v. Wade kind of established abortion, and I'm not particularly worried about one president being able to go after that and get it completely removed. They might be able to curtail or, add some protections in there, things like that, but I'm not particularly worried about it being overturned. But I'm a big Second Amendment supporter, and I am worried about Hillary Clinton trying to get her hands on all the guns. So you had a woman that was pro-choice pulling the lever for Trump because in her value, firearms are more important than abortion, but even then she didn't think that Trump was going to be able to take out abortion, and so far I don't think he's made any great strides to do that. Even if that was an objective of his, he hasn't made great strides to do that. So I think that if you pay close enough attention, the bias and hypocrisy of the media on both sides is going to be on full display. That's why and it was funny, this friend of mine, when he got completely, Thanos levels of anti-Trump, I told him, I'm like, my best advice is, and this isn't my advice, I stole this from somebody, the granddaddy of talk radio. I said, don't watch cable news. I said, find other sources for your news. I said, this guy I know, Rush, he has to stay in the loop on stuff, but he makes himself limit his cable news media intake. So during the workday and show prep and live broadcast, he has 2 TVs going in his office, one Fox, one CNN, muted with the captions on. So if something's breaking that he needs to go away from the planned show to cover this, he's in the loop. But once that's over, I think it's 5 o'clock, he shuts the news off and won't watch any more of it. And I can't tell you when the last time is that I sat down and watched a 30-minute cable news segment, even if it was from a local network. I've got a DVR, I could record it and watch it when I get home. I just don't. I can catch articles on Facebook through the local news sources if I need to. I can catch it through various podcasts on a national level, and even listen to it, both sides of the aisle. For a year or better, I would listen to NPR while heading to work, and then I'd listen to a more conservative podcast while driving home from work. I quit doing that now. I spend that time with you lovely people. But I still listen to my podcasts, and I listen to people that have a more left point of view than I do. And a lot of it, like, the best way I've heard this described, if you want to completely nail down facts, take, just using an example because everyone knows, listen to Fox News and CNN. And they're both going to run, on any given day, they're probably going to run very similar stories day to day. I'm sure there's going to be statistical outliers, like this young boy that was murdered. But you could listen to both of those stories and at least have the facts, and then have opinions from across the aisle pulling you in either direction, but you would have the facts for sure. I get a lot of my news from podcasts. I get a lot of it from reading more local publications online, because I just don't want to listen to spin constantly. And that's what a lot of it is. And I think that this case in North Carolina proves it. I've known a handful of people that have lost a child in my life. I can think of 4 off the top of my head. I was not my parents' first child, but I'm the oldest. My brother died before I was born. And even 30 years later, which was as old as my dad lived to be after my brother died, I would see how that affected him every year. On the date that he died, he would go to the cemetery one year he forgot. And that just killed him. A friend of the family, we used to go to church together years ago. They lost their youngest daughter in a very unfortunate accident. And I've seen how that affected them. The whole family. That was the baby girl. I remember, good grief, I was young. I was 10, 12 years old when this happened. And I remember Wednesday nights at church running around playing with her. You know, we'd run around the gym and do this or that, or I rember doing, just playing as kids. She was a few years younger than me, but not by a whole lot. And then just a year ago, not even, family that I went to church with, and I'd actually hung out with their son. He was 17. One of my side hustles, he'd help me out. I cut grass. I'd help, several times I had him come out and help me weed eat. Great kid, died in a car crash. And so I've seen, how stuff like that affects people, losing a kid. And all of the times that I had mentioned, my brother died of sudden infant death syndrome. And the other two were accidents. I've seen how much that affected the families, and you could attribute a lot of emotions, sadness, depression, all sorts of different types of grief emotions, being angry at God for letting this thing happen. I can't imagine throwing in the desire for revenge on this, and then on top of that, you've got an entire media complex ignoring the national story. My understanding, this guy's out in the wind, the police are looking for the car, they could blast him all over media and have a better chance of finding him before he hurts somebody else. But media outlets aren't cooperating. So if I were that boy's parents, it would be very easy to want to go hunt down this man and kill him before police find him. I'm not saying that that's justified. I'm not saying that that should be legal. I'm just saying that as a parent, I can see that it would be very easy to get into that mindset of doing something very illegal to try to satisfy an urge for revenge. So, my advice on all this would be to either unplug from the news. Hey, I'm passing my wife. I think. It may not have been her. She's got a company truck, and her company has exactly 2 different types of trucks, but they've got 40 of the silly things, so a lot of times I pass her co-workers and not her. Anyway, my advice would either be get news from more than one source if you're going to watch television news. And if you're not, get it from podcasts. I can recommend a bunch of them. Shoot me a comment. I'd be more than happy to. I know I'm not up to speed every day. This isn't a source of income for me, so I don't upload every day. I appreciate y'all coming in and watching, but I'm not uploading every day. I mean, if this really takes off, I might do more if it's a revenue stream, but I can't see me doing that. A lot of times I need just to break from commentating on it because it's just so... The news cycle is just vicious. I couldn't keep up with it. I could pick a handful of topics that I'm going to stay up to speed on, and if something regarding those topics happens, I can comment on that. That'd be about the most I'd be able to do, unless this became literally a full-time gig, and then at that, I don't know if I can mentally take it. So, anyway, that's all I got for today, folks. I'm out of here. Thanks for tuning in for another Cruise with Smooth. I appreciate it. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If there's anything that you guys want to hear my opinion on, feel free to leave it in the comments. Even if it's something I don't know, I'll be more than happy to do a little research and get back with you on it. Y'all take care. Stay safe. Thanks for